Thank you everyone for subscribing to Infinitely Productions. If you have not done so, please click the bell and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy our content. In this video, we'll be going over some of our sources that will help make this content happen. One of our sources is Ashbury Park Press. Another source, the Philadelphia Inquirer. Of course, Mafia Prints by Philip Leonetti. The Press Atlantic City. The United States Federal Census. And more. She was the mother of the future underboss, Philip Leonetti. She was the sister of the future mob boss, Nicodemo, little Nicky Scarfo. In her past work, she'd be working as a waitress, caretaking, and much more. This is the story of Annunziata Nicky Scarfo Leonetti. The beginning. Annunziata Scarfo was born on October 30th, 1930 in New York City. She was born to Catherine Maria Piccolo Scarfo and Philip J. Scarfo. Her father, Philip Scarfo, was from Calabria, Italy, and immigrated to the United States. Her mother, Catherine Maria Piccolo Scarfo's parents were from Calabria, Italy. However, Catherine Scarfo was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the birthplace of America. Nicky Scarfo will be the baby of the family. Her older brother will be the future mob boss of Philadelphia and Atlantic City. He was Nicodemo, little Nicky Scarfo. Nancy and her brother were born during the Great Depression, which was a severe economic issue that involved the stock market and created a whole economic worldwide collapse and affected most economies. She and her family moved from New York to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for a more comfortable living situation. Annunziata Scarfo will be nicknamed Nancy to adapt more into the American society. All the times you see her listed in the United States Federal Census, she is listed as Nancy as opposed to Annunziata. As she grown older, she is listed to work for a hotel as a chef's secretary, as you can see based on the 1950 U.S. Federal Census. The Scarfo family were moved on this street in Philadelphia, 744 Warnock Street, as you can see here of what it looks like today. Between the age of 21 to 22, Nicky Scarfo would marry Pasquale Leonetti in 1952, as you can see in this picture here, with her brother Nicky Scarfo on the right hand side. The next year, she would give birth to her one and only child, Philip Michael Leonetti, on March 27, 1953. When she married Pasquale Leonetti, she then became known as Nicky Scarfo Leonetti, adding the surname. Here is a picture of Philip Leonetti with his uncle Nicky Scarfo and his godmother. Nicky Scarfo Leonetti's husband, Pasquale Leonetti, was reported to be a well-respected gambler who was picked by Angelo Bruno, who was the godfather of Philadelphia at that time, and he was to oversee many of the market-controlled card and dice games that operated in and around South Philadelphia in the late 1950s and 1960s. Pasquale Leonetti had a reputation as a serious gambler not only in South Philadelphia, but in Jersey and even New York. He was so well known and respected that Walter Winchell, the famous journalist, wrote a piece on him. This is why Angelo Bruno picked Pasquale Leonetti to run those games. He was that good. However, according to Leonetti, when it came to Pasquale being a father, he was no good. In fact, according to the book Mafia Prince, he was a bum. In the words of Mafia Prince, after his luck took a turn for the worse, Pasquale went from running from the mob's top card games to owing the mob the money he lost and he couldn't pay back when he gambled himself. Pasquale Leonetti had crapped out. When Philip Leonetti was just a baby, Pasquale left Philadelphia and headed south to Florida, leaving Nancy and young Philip to fend for themselves. Angelo Bruno had taken Pasquale's exterminating business as a way to clearing his debts. Philip and his mother were left with nothing. By the time Nancy's parents, Philip and Catherine Scarfo, had also left South Philadelphia, moving 60 miles east to Atlantic City, the once booming seaside resort known as the world's playground had fallen on hard times and was considered down and out by the early 1960s. It had literally gone from boom to bust. The Scarfos purchased 2 connecting apartment buildings at 26 to 28 North Georgia Avenue in the city's Italian enclave known as Ducktown. Each building stood 4 stories tall and was 2.5 blocks from the world's famous Atlantic City Boardwalk and the sandy beaches leading to the Atlantic Ocean, and was surrounded by other similarly structured road homes. Nancy's father, Philip Scarfo, was a laborer who worked at Atlantic City's prestigious Chaffonte Haddon Hall Hotel. Nancy's father, Philip Scarfo, was a wonderful man. Philip Leonetti was named after him. When Philip was little and when his family lived in South Philadelphia, he had a job where he had a horse with a wagon, and he used to give him rides along the neighborhood. Nancy's mother, Catherine Scarfo, was a homemaker and a devout Catholic who was faithfully attended Mass every morning at St. Michael's Church, which was located less than 50 yards from the Scarfo family home, and as you can see in this video. This church was also seen in an interview Philip Leonetti had done in the 1990s. On Nancy's maternal side, she had 3 uncles. Nick, Joe, and Mike Piccolo were all well-respected soldiers in the Bruno crime family, which was based in Philadelphia but maintained a strong presence in New Jersey, particularly in cities of Trenton, Newark, and Atlantic City. Each had a door with the same nickname. They were known respectively as Nicky Buck, Joe Buck, and Mikey Buck, and owned and operated Piccolo's 500, a notorious mob hangout that grew into a popular restaurant and club in South Philadelphia. In 1957, with Pasquale out of the picture, and Nancy and 4-year-old Philip would leave Philadelphia and settle into the Scarfo family compound in Atlantic City, which at the time was more than a decade past its prime. Nancy would take a job in Atlantic City working for the Bureau of Children's Services, which functioned like an adoption agency and provided care for underprivileged children. With his father out of the picture, Philip gravitated towards Nancy's older brother, his Uncle Nick, as a father figure. At the time, it was just his mother, his grandparents, and himself living on Georgia Avenue. His father was gone. He was just a little boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old. His uncle was still living in South Philadelphia, but he used to come down a lot to see them or do business with Skinny Razor Felix DeTullio, who was a mob captain, a cop regime, and the Philadelphia mob's top guy at the Jersey Shore at that time, during the 1950s and 1960s. As Philip was only 8 years old, his Uncle Nicky took him to dump a body in a car, unbeknownst to Philip Leonetti, to fathom how the life of the mob had worked. He would use him as a decoy, so therefore if he was pulled over by the police, they would not think that his uncle would be capable of having a body or have his nephew involved in a murder. But unfortunately that was to come, and Nicky Scarfo had no problem sharing these details with his nephew, to know that in the future he will recruit him to do the same if Philip Leonetti was put in that position. As Philip Leonetti was grown from enjoying basketball in high school and his mother being proud for him growing to graduating high school and possibly even going to college, he knew at that time that life had a different turnaround. Nancy had fear of what his uncle was capable of, and as she thought the worst, that would be the truth to come. Nicky Scarfo will already have his nephew being involved in mob activities. In fact, just in his early 20s, at the age of 23, Philip Leonetti would participate in double murders. One would be Louis DeMarco, in which he and his right-hand man, Vincent Falcone, would empty their guns on Louis DeMarco after he was stealing crab games from Chicky Narducci. And to earn his buns in La Cosa Nostra, he would have to participate in a murder and be 100% Italian, in which he was both. And Philip Leonetti were acquitted. Nancy Scarfo and the Scarfo family will be elated to see the family rejoice and be together, and to see her brother on television saying this:
"Thank God for the American jury system, an honest jury."
However, this would not be the last time that Nancy Scarfo would hear about her brother and son making the news. In fact, they will always be making the news throughout the years to come. Now that the 1970s were over, the new era of the 1980s will be a huge crime warfare between the factions of the Angelo Bruno murder and the reign of Nicky Scarfo's era to begun.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and check out more of our content. Feel free to give your feedback and suggestions on what we should do next in the comments. This is Infinite Lee Productions. We love ya.